In this set of videos, we're going to talk about Inkscape, which is a vector graphics program that I think would be a good tool to use, not only for manipulating the visualizations that we're going to produce using ggplot2, but also to produce posters which can present the findings of your research. So in this introductory video, I'm going to go over just a little bit of background on what Inkscape is, and then the remainder of the videos will be some demonstrations using Inkscape to do a couple tasks that will probably come in handy when you're actually going to be producing your poster, or while you want to manipulate or add annotations to your visualizations. So as far as what Inkscape is, I think the easiest thing to do is describe what it's not first, because a lot of people are probably familiar with Photoshop, which is a tool which manipulates the pixels of an image. So it's a bitmap editor. So in this example, if you really wanted to put your face on a piece of toast, Photoshop would probably be the tool. Inkscape, on the other hand, is not an appropriate tool for that. So Photoshop, again, manipulates the pixels in an image, whereas Inkscape is more appropriate for modifying shapes and geometric objects. Very similar to what we've been talking about when we're using ggplot2 and we're manipulating bar graphs or scatter plots and things like that. So if we look into a little bit more of the details of this image, what we'll see is that it's just an array of pixels that have different colors. So moving from the first image where it was just the piece of toast, and then to the second image that's been modified to have an image overlaid on top of it, you can see that it's just a collection of pixels when you zoom in on it at a very high level. So the alternative to Photoshop in graphic design would be the tool called Illustrator. So not many people are as familiar with Illustrator, but Illustrator is a vector graphics program, so it's really designed to manipulate shapes. You can do graphics with it, but it's a different type of tool. So in the same way that you could probably hammer a nail into wood with a screwdriver, it's just not the right tool for the job. So again, if you're going to manipulate an image, you probably want to use Photoshop. If you're going to design things made up of shapes that have different colors and are more object oriented, Illustrator would be the tool. So Inkscape is effectively a free version of Illustrator. So again, a little bit further on what the distinction is. So Inkscape and Illustrator are vector based. So if we go back quickly to this image that I showed here, what I have is I have a plot that I designed with ggplot2. That's right from the code I wrote, and then over on the right hand side is something that I've modified. So I add this highlighted region down here in the corner, and I've taken one of the data points and I've made it larger. I've added white borders on these. So that's the kind of manipulation you can do inside tools like Illustrator and Inkscape. So the point of it being vector based is that behind the scenes, this is actually code. So this box that has the dotted line around it is actually, if you were to open this file in a text editor, you would see this rectangle, effectively HTML style. It's an XML document. So this box is defined by this definition, which says I have a rectangle. It has a width and a height. It's located at an XY coordinate, and it has a rounded corner, and this is the radius. So far off on the right hand side, there's an opacity. You can define the color of the border. You can define the color of the fill. So those are all the things that you can manipulate inside the vector drawing program. So what's nice about this is you can move that box around kind of point and click style, whereas in Photoshop, to do these tasks would be a little more cumbersome. So it's really appropriate for when you want to modify a group of shapes similar to what we will see in our visualizations. So the other key benefit of the vector-based designs is that the fidelity of the image is preserved as you stretch or skew an object. So if you design your plot a certain size and then you want to make it larger to put it on your poster, you can just grab it and stretch it, and the fidelity of that image will be preserved. Whereas in Photoshop, if you try to stretch an image that is a smaller size and you want to make it larger, what you're going to get is you're going to get pixelation that really shows the blocky chunkiness of the image. since this is vector based, it just says, okay, I'm going to take that rectangle that I had originally, I'm just going to make it larger, and then when you display it, it's just going to display it at that larger size. So that this is not an array of pixels at this point. Granted, when I put this into my PowerPoint presentation, it converts it to pixels, but the original design is all just mathematical formulas presenting content on the screen. So that's the key distinction between something like Photoshop and something like Illustrator or Inkscape, is that Photoshop is pixel based and Inkscape and Illustrator are vector based, which means you have that freedom of scalability because it's all just objects of geometric concepts. So key points as to, okay, why Inkscape? We understand the difference between pixel based and vector based at this point. So why Inkscape? So my main purposes for using Inkscape is one, it's free. That's always good in that I can share my Inkscape files with anybody and just say, hey, go download Inkscape, and then you'd be able to use the same file that I was using. Whereas if I was to work in Illustrator and I wanted to pass that off, I would have to export it to some different type of file, and whether the export process would change anything along the way, I wouldn't be quite so sure. So here I can say, here's my original, go do what you need to do with it. Also, it's supported on multiple platforms, so we don't, you can use it on PC, you can use it on Mac, you can use it in Linux. It supports a wide variety of platforms. The files that it uses are called SVGs, so that's scalar vector graphics, so that can be viewed inside a web browser. So if you have a document, you're working on it, you could open it up in a web browser, and that could be a way that you could look at it. So compatibility with web browsers is important. You can also embed the designs you come up with in HTML pages, and the web compatibility is nice for that. And really the key point, and this goes back to what are vector graphics, is it's designed to lay out geometric content. So if you think about what our bar graphs and our scatter plots look like, really the border and the background of the graph is just a bunch of rectangles of a given color. Typically they're light gray. You have some text on the screen, and then you have the data itself, which is either represented in a bar graph or some dots. So those geometric objects can be manipulated very easily inside a vector graphics program. Again, you can scale them, you can move them around on the screen. It's really what this vector-based tools, Inkscape and Illustrator, are designed to do. So quickly, what are we going to cover? We're going to go over basic setup of a design, so using the workspace, the canvas of Illustrator, how to orient your page, how to set up grid lines. We'll talk about how to move alignment, how to line things up together. So if you've got 5 objects, you want to have them all top aligned, left aligned, center aligned. I'll show you how to do all that. We'll look at how to make some basic shapes. We'll talk about text design. We'll talk about layers, which is a way to look at different design alternatives. So if you have a graph and you're not sure if you want to change a color, you can put each of your alternatives in a layer, turn them on and off, and see what your presentation looks like with those alternatives. We'll also talk about how to do color design. So we had some content in the lectures about color, so we'll look at the facilities Inkscape provides in order to do color design. So if you want to alter a color by manipulating either the lightness or the brightness, we'll look at how to do that. And then also we'll look at how R can be integrated in this. So one of the things we've looked at in class is how to export your visualizations to bitmaps, but you can also export them right to SVG files, so that way you can open them in Inkscape and then manipulate them, add your annotations, change colors like I did in that example. So that's about it. Last thing you need to do is just go get Inkscape. So if you go to inkscape.org, download the file, get that installed, and in the next video we'll get started with setting up the design surface. We'll talk about portrait versus landscape, setting up some grid lines, and then we'll get started in actually manipulating some content. So that's what we'll get started. Again, get it installed and we'll pick it up from here. Either follow along or just watch, and we'll get started on the next video.